Now we have the most awaited session. I'm very happy to introduce our resource person, Dr. P.N. Harikumar, Professor, Department of Commerce, University of Kerala, Trivandrum. He has two PhDs, one in commerce and other in management. He has some teaching experience of 25 years, membership in editorial board of several journals. In his credit, he has a lot of publication, published 46 books, and produced several PhDs. He is an apt person to deal with the topic research methodology and applied statistics. Now over to you, sir, please.
Thank you. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. The Master of Principal, IQC Coordinator, Head of the Department, and my friend Raji Thomas, and my beloved friend and honorable member of the syndicate, Dr. Vinod, other faculty members, teachers, and research scholars. Firstly, I appreciate the organizers to conduct a wonderful program with a clear-cut aim and the syllabus. 7 days program with the 7 aspects of research methodology. So today's section I will handle research methodology and applied statistics. Before going to the details of the application of statistics in research, firstly I will tell something about research, the research process. The application of statistics comes only from the sample design. How to select the sample from the population. From that point onwards, the researcher has to apply statistics for selection of sample from the population, collection of data, analysis, interpretation, and especially the testing of hypothesis. In all these fields, the researcher has to apply statistics. Without the application of statistics, no research scholar can test the hypothesis. Therefore, application of statistics in research is an important thing in social science research. Can you hear my, can you see my PC?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. I start from the very beginning. Research. In some of the textbook, elaborate definitions you can see. Set for new knowledge, to existing knowledge, and scientific knowledge. I would like to define the term research. Research is scientific inquiry. A lot of systematic procedure steps has been followed by the researcher in research, and these steps are otherwise called a scientific inquiry. Or getting new knowledge or something valid. So research means scientific inquiry. Especially in social science, nobody can do research without having an inquiry.
Sir, the presentation is not visible.
PPT is not.
Sir, okay. Okay. Okay, sir, okay.
PPT is visible. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, fine.
Okay, visible.
In social science, inquiry is the base of research. Some research scholars pursue research in the field of commerce, in the field of management. Some other pursue research in the field of economics or sociology. So in social science, the basic point of research is inquiry. See, how to start research? The researcher has to select an area. Area may be marketing, or HR, or general management, or socially relevant area. From that area, the researcher has to select a topic. In that topic, the researcher has a problem. Problem identification is the first step. Nobody can do research without having a problem. If you have a sound and reliable problem, definitely you can continue research. From that problem, so many sub-problems have to be identified by the researcher only through literature review. So we start from the last point. Before doing research or before starting research, the researcher has to revise or review all the available literature like into a topic. Through literature review, the researcher may be in a position to identify main problems. From the main problem, he has to identify many sub-problems. So the starting point, selection of an area. From that area, the topic has to be selected. In that area, the researcher has to identify a reliable and valid problem for his research. From that problem, so many sub-problems have to be defined and identified. And for that purpose, there is literature review. So literature review is a very, very important point in research again. For instance, a research scholar select an area, finance. In that area, he select a topic, sugar industry. The research scholar go through the particular topic and area, there will be a problem. He must identify a problem. See, what is the problem? Majority of the sugar manufacturing units in Kerala were declared sick. Why? Once we have 3 sugar manufacturing units in Kerala, they were declared as sick. Why? This is the main problem identified by that researcher in a topic sugar industry in the area of finance. Why these are declared as sick? Because majority of the sugar manufacturing units were run at a loss. Again, why? Why they were running at a loss? Because expenditure exceeds revenue. Again, why? Then some of the cost elements are increasing at an alarming rate. Again, why? So from the main problem, researcher has to identify a number of sub-problems through literature review. Once again, the selection of area of interest, the topic, problem, sugar manufacturing unit once operated in hours are declared sick. Why? That's the main problem. Because they have run at a loss. Why? Again, because expenditure exceeds revenue. Again, why? So many sub-problems have to be identified for the main problem. So this is the starting point of research. Again, another area of study, marketing. Topic: consumer behavior. Problem: what are the factors affecting the consumer behavior? What are the factors affecting their customer satisfaction? What is the impact of customer satisfaction? Maybe trust or loyalty. What is the impact of trust or loyalty? Brand equity. After brand equity, what will come? Brand extension. So from the main topic, from the main area, from the main topic, from the main problem, so many sub-problems have to be identified by the researcher. Again, I'm going to give human resource. What are the factors affecting job satisfaction? After job satisfaction, what will be the outcome? Institutional commitment. Maybe. Then, what will be the outcome? Institutional institution. So, in a particular area, we have to identify a particular topic. From that topic, we identify a concrete and reliable research problem. From that problem, a number of sub-problems have to be identified. For that purpose, there is extensive literature review. So after identifying the main problem, sub-problems, define these problems very clearly and in a systematic way, through literature review, the researcher may be in a position to identify n number of variables relating to the main problem and sub-problems. And these variables have to be grouped into two, dependent and independent. Then try to establish certain relation, tentative relations. And that tentative relation, assumed relationship is called a hypothesis. So hypothesis is very, very essential in social science research. Because one variable is affected by another variable. That variable is again affected by another variable, another set of variables. So there is a network of relationship, chain of relationship among variables, and that is a feature of social science research. In a scientific research, or even in laboratory research, experimental research, everything will be based on certain experiments. In scientific research, the outcome will be the natural truth. So, for example, 2 plus 2, 4. That may not be 5. That may not be 3. S2O, 2 molecules of hydrogen, 1 molecule of oxygen will give water. So this is a scientific truth, natural truth. So in scientific truth, the outcome will be the scientific truth or even scientific or natural truth. This is a feature of scientific research. But in social science, the very basic point is we have certain assumptions. A number of variables are to be selected. They are interconnected and intercorrelated. There is a network of relationship among the variables. There is a chain of relationship among the variables. And these variables may be classified into dependent and independent. And try to establish certain relations, and that relations is called a hypothesis. And this hypothesis will be to prove its validity with statistics. Statistics is very important. And every hypothesis must include the relationship between dependent and independent. If you have no relationship between dependent variable and independent variable in a hypothesis, that hypothesis you framed is merely a statement that cannot be proved. If you have the concrete relationship between dependent and independent variable in a hypothesis, that can be proved, that can be validated with some of the statistical tests available. So, at the time of framing the hypothesis, definitely you will consider the concrete relationship between dependent variable and independent variable. So hypothesis must be tested with the appropriate statistical test. For that purpose, data has to be collected. Data has to be collected either from private sources or from secondary sources. Data has to be collected from different sources. And in social science, for that purpose, there will be an inquiry. Inquiry must be conducted to collect data from different sources. If we collect data from primary sources, there will be inquiry. Even a collection of secondary data is also termed as an inquiry. To inquiry, sense and something. If we have the India units constitute the population. The private sector satisfaction of public sector and private sector banks in Kerala. The population is very large because a large number of customers avail services from these two types of banks. The population is finite, at the same time the population is very large. If we collect from data from or information from all the customers from these two types of banks, definitely it is a tedious will be very high. Therefore, we study the population. They are part of the population. For example, we select 300 or 500 sample customers from these two information. This is called a sample. And sample. Two types of inquiries are there. Then another question, how to select a sample from the population? So there are methods of sampling, different techniques of sampling, classified into probability sampling and non-probability sampling. In probability sampling, we select the sample from the population at random. Random selection of sample from the population. And in case of non-probability sampling, there is no clear-cut theory with regard to the selection of sample. A selection of sample from the population depends on the convenience of
Sir,
sampling. Hello?
Sir, there is a problem in audio.
Hello?
Voice is breaking, sir.
Voice is breaking.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear now?
Okay, now it's okay, sir.
It's okay.
Sir, please.
So probability sampling and non-probability sampling. In the case of probability sampling, selection of sample from the population at random. You randomly select the sample from the population. And in the case of non-probability sampling, there is no clear-cut idea or theory behind the selection of sample from the population. The selection is purely the choice of the researcher, the convenience of the researcher. So in this way, we got the data from the sample respondents identified from the population. And the data has to be analyzed by using different methods. Univariate statistical method, bivariate statistical method, and multivariate statistical method. So the application of statistics in research, especially for data analysis, the data analysis is classified into three: univariate, bivariate, and multivariate analysis. And I have already mentioned. Yes.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, please keep your microphone closer, sir. Audio is breaking.
Hello?
Sir, please keep your microphone closer, sir. Audio is breaking.
Any interruptions in my or my audio system?
Yes, sir.
Not only interruptions in my audio system.
It is breaking, sir.
Sir, the audio breaking.
It's breaking now.
No clarity, sir. Breaking.
Sir, voice somewhat breaking now. Is it audible, sir?
Not. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Now it is audible, but there are occasions where we
Now
losing
it is
clarity.
audible.
Now it is okay.
I think there may be some interconnection or network problem here.
Yes, maybe.
Now it is okay, sir. Now it is okay.
Okay.
Now it's okay. Now okay.
Okay. So I have already mentioned the application of statistical method start from the point where we prepare the sampling design. From the design of the sampling onwards, definitely the researcher has to apply a statistical method. So we start from again sampling. So sampling is the process of the selection of sample respondents from the population. And here population means the universe of the units from which the sample is to be selected. In our area of study, who are the targeted respondents? The entire targeted respondents constitute population. And we select respondents from the overall population under study. And this population, yes, selected respondents constitute sample. Some inferences based on the information furnished by the sample respondents, we have to make some inferences about the population. That means sample is a part of the population. And the sample must be the true representative of the population. So basically what we will do in sampling, the sample selected will be the true representative of the population. That is the condition. At the same time, there is another assumption or condition. The parent population from where the sample have been drawn is normally distributed. Suppose we want to collect information from women gynecologists for measuring their work-life balance. The topic is work-life balance of women gynecologists. Our targeted population, the total number of women gynecologists working in our state. This is our population. Say, for example, 1,500, more than 1,500 women gynecologists were working in our state. We need a sample size of 300 only. These 300 will this is an assumption. At the same time, there is a condition. Is normally the parent population from where the sample have been drawn normally distribution is this condition upon we select the sample from the population. This is very, very important. I choose low cost research, speed of data collection, and availability of population elements. Once we collect data from the sample, identify the population, definitely we will have certain sample statistics. The sample statistics here means maybe mean, median, mode, standard deviation, or any other descriptive statistics. This sample statistic is used for measuring the unknown value of the population. What we will study in sample? We collect data from the sample respondents and do the analysis with either multi-statistics or bivariate statistical method or even multivariate statistical method. And these statistics are to be used for predicting the unknown value of the population parameter.
Hello, audible?
Yes, sir, please.
Really sorry that Harikumar sir is some issue with the connections. I'm very confident that he will get back soon. Really sorry for the. Yes, sir. Is it audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, meanwhile, I will discuss little issues connected with research. All right. You talked about the data collection aspects. You clearly articulated the various steps in research, starting from selection of the topic, selection of the area of research, how you title the topic. After that, identification of the research problem, and how review of literature could use as a navigating source for identifying the research topic. Then gradually you get into the research objectives. Based upon the objectives, how you design your hypothesis part, and actually get into the data collection aspects, primary data, secondary data. Along with the primary data, he talked about the single variable, multivariables, etc., and how the sampling size should be generated by taking an example from the gynec doctors in Kerala, and talked about how the samples should be drawn. And I'm sure you will continue that part. Within my limited knowledge, I will discuss little issues in the meantime. You see, research is an integral part which is based on the research methodology. We all know the research scholars are here, teachers are here, the upcoming research guides are here. So we all know the articulation, it's a science. Since it's a science, we need to follow certain systematic procedures for reaching our conclusions. And as far as the limited knowledge is concerned, you find significant difference between the research reports drafted in commerce and management with that of social science, or with that of social science with that of education, pure science, etc. So my first observation is, even though it is based on a science, you find little bit of difference between the subject to subject, university to university, and of course, guide to guide. That means the way it is drafted in Kerala University maybe is little different in way it is drafted in Calicut University. Again, you see, commerce and management are the two cousins, of course, we talked about in that way. You find the PhD submitted in management is somewhat different from what is being we are following in commerce. Again, you see, normally commerce people write all these things in the first chapter, introductory chapter. You see, that stands for a general introduction to the topic, introduction to the specific area. Then we come to significance of the study. Of course, we come to the significance as well as the scope of the study. Then the core area is research problem. Okay. Regarding research problem, normally we write it as rationality of the study. In rationality, how you identify the research problem. That is, Harikumar talked about the identification of the research problem. This is one area we need to look into. Second one is, from the research problem, you may have a lot of problems connected with the area of study. You screened it, identify it, and put it in a either descriptive way, or you put it in a question format form. Normally, conventionally, we follow the descriptive pattern. Now the research demand a kind of quantification of the problem in the form of research questions. That is why we interpret it that way in the descriptively first, then screen it, make it to 2 or 3 research problems in the form of research questions. Normally, we follow if 6 or 7 objectives are there in the research, we identify 7 to 8 research problems. It's a core problem, sub-problem, linking problem, etc., etc. Then we come to the research objectives. Am I right? Is it audible now, scholars?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, all right. Then you come to the research objectives. Normally, a PhD thesis consists of 5 to 6 objectives. There is no hard and fast rule regarding how many pages a thesis should go, how many objectives you should go, etc., etc. But it is being the custom like that. Again, you see, one point I would like to mention is, even in social science, I talked about, even in social science, there is a significant difference. Because why it is so significant difference is, so science of society is being studied under social science. That means it deals with the aspect of the society, relationship among group within the community. So in that sense, which are the subjects that may come under social science? It may be economics, politics, public administration, geography, international relations, demography, sociology, etc. are the pure pattern of social science. When you go into the wider applications, you see anthropology, archaeology, psychology, history, criminology, linguistics, education. Of course, I talked about the management science, then library science, environmental studies are also come under social science. There may be some doubts or issues regarding shall all these will come under social science. Again, you see, if you go into the little more wider aspects, the research become interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. So in the interdisciplinary pattern, one is sociobiology. It is a subject that's studied under social science now. Neuropsychology, bioeconomics. Of course, we people deal with the behavioral finance. All these things are now being studied under the so-called social science. So naturally, so one type of stereotyped framework may not be fit to study all these things. That is why you find methodological difference even in social science. Naturally, the methodology adapted for pure science is totally different from social science. So this research scholars, you just identify these kind of differences are there. Now, when you talk about any research problem or a research project, another thing you should study is a project is not a survey. Of course, surveys are a part of the project. The problem regarding the project idea, you may get large number of ideas from the heterogeneous sources. So HARIKUMAR sir talked about the marketing, some of the examples. Suppose you want to generate a core idea, a new problem or a new product design. Naturally, what are the major sources? You can identify from the supplier, you can identify from the customer, you can identify from research firms. There are research agencies dealing with these kind of problems. Brainstorming techniques are there. Of course, in marketing literature, you find morphological analysis. You may get some inputs from psychographic studies, AIO studies. So there are different sources one could get these problems. Now the second question is, all these ideas may be rough enough. You have to fine tune these ideas within the socio-economic background of the society, within the available data collection methodology, within the formality, etc., etc. Next thing we will look into issues related to the depth and coverage of the project or idea. That may also be taken into account. For having a sound grasp of all these things, it should be backed up by the review of literature. So review of literature is an integral part of
any research area. And of course, in the methodology part, we need to go into population frame and sampling techniques. I'm sure HARIKUMAR will back with this data very soon. How the sampling frame will be drawn, what are the sampling techniques, what are the sources of secondary and primary data, data classification, summarization aspects, how many tools you can use for data collection. It may be questionnaire, it may be interview schedule, it may be mailed questionnaire, it may be Google form. All these methodologies can be, all these data collection methods can be applied. Another thing we would like to know is scaling techniques. Scaling techniques, there are ordinal scales. There are different types that nowadays HARIKUMAR will talk on that. Variables used are there, where there are different types of variables. Single variable, dependent variable, independent variable, dependent variable, multi-variable. So many techniques are used in this. Now, analytical tool is another one. Presentation tools is totally different. Normally, researchers doesn't give much importance to these kind of tools because it is written in a general format. When you talk about tools, there are three sets of tools. Tools for data collection, tools for analysis, and of course, tools for presentation. Then you find a synergy between objectives and findings. It is always imperative on the part of the researcher to find a synergy between all the different components and different headings.
So another important method, systematic sampling. The condition is finite population. Vinod, can you hear my voice? Vinod. Hello?
Yes, sir. Hearing, sir.
Hello? Hearing, okay. So systematic sampling, the condition is a finite population. And the first sample is selected at random. The remaining samples were selected at regular intervals. Say, for example, the women gynecologists working in Kerala, the total number 1,500. From the 1,500, we select 300. Our sample size 300. 300 gynecologists were selected from among 1,500 gynecologists working in our state. What is the interval here? Out of 1,500, our target sample size 300. Therefore, the interval is 5. If we selected 10th item or 10th gynecologists in the list at random, what will be the second? The second gynecologist will be the 15th gynecologist in the list. That means the interval is 5. Therefore, by applying systematic random sampling, we select the first unit at random. Remaining units were selected at a regular interval. Here the interval is 5 because 1,500, the total gynecologists in the population, our target sample size 300, therefore the interval 5. We select the first gynecologist at random, possibly the 10th gynecologist in the list. This is the first gynecologist we select. Second gynecologist to be selected after considering this interval, therefore 15th gynecologist in the list. What is the third? Third is the 20th gynecologist in the list. Similarly, we select the remaining units at regular intervals. But you remember, the first unit is selected at random. So therefore, in the case of the application of simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, multi-stage random sampling, in all these cases, we apply the concept of probability. That means selection of units at random. Every unit in the population has an equal chance of being included in the sample. This is a basic theory, basic condition upon which we select the sample at random from the population in all these 5 statistical methods, techniques of sampling. So there is what is sample size determination? Again, sample size determination is the mathematical estimation of the number of subjects or units to be included in a study. So this is a mathematical estimation. Sample size determination is basically a mathematical estimation. When a representative sample is taken from the population, the findings are generalized to population. I have already mentioned that theory. What we will do in a sample study? The sample statistic will be used for predicting the unknown value of the population parameter. We have certain findings related to sample study. We collect the information from the sample respondents and furnish the data, analyze it, and this conclusion based on sample study will be used for generalizing the population, generalizing the characteristics of the population, the unknown value of the population. This is what we will do in sample study. Which means when a sample representative is taken from population, the findings are generalized to population. The sample findings are generalized to population. Optimal sample size determination is required for the following reason: to allow for analysis, to allow accuracy, to allow validity of significance. I have already mentioned in social science research, there is a similar relationship. Dependent with an independent variable. That relationship has to be proved. That assumed relationship is called hypothesis. Therefore, hypothesis has to be validated with the data. Data must be reliable. Only when the sample size should be optimum. And conversely, if the sample size is too large, what is the impact of large sample size? Unnecessary sample size. The study will be difficult and costly, time constraint, available cases, loss of accuracy. And these are the drawbacks of large samples. And procedure for calculating sample size, this is very important. There are 4 procedures that could be used for calculating sample size. The first one, use of formula. Different formulas are available for the fixation of optimal sample size. Ready-made tables are available. Nomograms. This is another table used for the fixation of sample size in diagnostic research, especially in the medical field. And some of the computer softwares and the softwares have an option to determine the sample size. So which is the best method? The best method is use of a formula, statistical formula for fixation of sample size, optimal sample size. Different formulas are available, but there is a question: where to apply, when to apply, against which type of data we can apply that formula for the fixation of sample size. But truly speaking, we can use different formula against the information furnished by the respondents in the pilot study. That is why pilot study is very, very important in research, especially in social science subject. In the pilot study, what we will do? In the pilot study, we collect certain test information from certain number of respondents selected from the population. Definitely, for our study, there may be a population. From the original population, we select certain number of respondents and collect information for a testing procedure, preliminary testing procedure. That is why it is called a preliminary survey, pilot study. Based on the information or data furnished by the respondents for the pilot study, we can calculate certain descriptive statistics, mean, median, mode, standard deviation. So many descriptive statistics we can calculate against the data furnished by the respondents for the pilot study. This statistic can be used for the fixation of our sample size with a different formula. So once again, formula can be applied against the data furnished by the respondents in the pilot study. After getting data from the pilot study, we can calculate descriptive statistics. Such descriptive statistics can be used for the fixation of optimum sample size with a clear-cut formula. Different formulas are there. See, what are the formula? The first formula, Cochran formula, N0, that means total sample size, optimum sample size, is equal to Z square PQ divided by E square. Z score formula, necessary sample size is equal to Z square into standard deviation into 1 minus standard deviation divided by margin of error square. So here, what is marginal of error?
Sir, it will be
Normally in social science.
Sir, 1 minute. It will be better for make your slide in full screen.
Okay. Yes. So different formulas are available. The first formula, Cochran formula, N0 is equal to Z square PQ divided by E square. Z score formula, necessary sample size is equal to Z square into standard deviation into 1 minus standard deviation divided by margin of error square. So here, what is the error? Normally in social science, we fix a 5% error, 5% level of significance. When we test the hypothesis, there may be the possibility of error. We fix at a 5% or 1%. But in social science, we fix a 5%. That means 95% experiment were always true. We estimate a parameter or we estimate the value of a statistic, and when we generalize it, 95% sample statistic is almost similar to the population parameter. But 5% there may be the possibility of error. But in science subject, we fix 1%. Social science subject, we fix 5%. That means 0.05. But these two formulas are very complicated because we don't know when to apply, where to apply. But this is the most reliable formula for the fixation of sample size, because this formula can be applied against the data furnished by the respondents in the sample study. Sorry, in the pilot study. After conducting the pilot study, we observe the data or the information, and based on such information, we calculate certain sample statistic like mean, standard deviation, standard error of the estimation of the population parameter, and we fix a 5% level of significance. The 5% level of significance, the value of Z 1.96. And I already mentioned parent population from where the sample drawn is normally distributed. Based on this condition, the value of Z at a 5% level of significance 1.96. So by using this formula, we can fix the optimum size for our study. And this formula can be applied against the response in the pilot study. Through pilot study, we can have certain information. Based on data information, we apply this formula for the fixation of optimum sample size. See, another formula. This is also good. The required sample size square NP into 1 minus P divided by D square into N minus 1 plus chi square P into 1 minus P. This is also good, but there may be some controversy how to calculate chi square. What is the need for calculation of chi square? So I would like to prefer this formula. This formula is much reliable for the fixation of sample size, optimum sample size for your study, because this formula can be applied against the information furnished by the respondents in the pilot study. In the pilot study, what we will do? In the pilot study, we select certain number of respondents from the population, the original population, from where we select the sum for the completion of our study. Our study is not original population, and from the population, we select number of samples, respondents for our pilot study. The pilot study result is almost equal to the result we will get from the original study. The pilot study result is almost equal to or similar to the result of the original study. So that is why against the information furnished by the respondents in the pilot study, that information can be used for the fixation of optimum sample size. And here, another important concept, how to use the information from the pilot study to fixation of an optimal sample size. See, this is a questionnaire used for a pilot study. Work-life balance of women gynecologists. Interview schedule for survey among women gynecologists. Question number 2, age, qualification. Question number 4, number of years of service. How many institutions you have worked so far? Question number 5. All these questions are in nominal scale. All these questions are in nominal scale. But you just observe the nature of the questions. Under question number 19, you are requested to mark your response on a 7-point scale. Strongly agree, 7. Strongly disagree, 1. So here we use the interval scale. The interval scale is used for the measurement of n number of variables under study. What is the first variable here? Bad environmental climate in hospital. No peaceful ambience in hospital. Emotional nature of work, another variable. So many variables affects the work-life balance of the gynecologist. What is the topic here? Work-life balance of women gynecologists. N number of variables affects their work-life balance. All these variables are listed and measured on a 7.5 scale basis. And here the interval scale is used for the measurement. Bad environment and climate in hospital. 4 statements were used for the measurement of this variable. No peaceful ambience in hospital. Again, 4 statements were used for the measurement of this variable. Emotional nature of work, another variable affects the work-life imbalance. or work-life balance. And for that purpose, 7 statements were used. So, my dear participants, when we use interval scale for the measurement of a variable with as many as statements, definitely we are dealing with the quantitative figures. See, once again I explain the concept. Question number 2, age. The first category below 25. Second category 25 to 35. Third category 36 to 45. So these are the nominal scale variable, categorical variable. But question number 19, in order to measure certain variables under study, we use different statements upon which the response may be obtained on a 7-point scale basis. These are called interval scale variable. If we use interval scale, definitely we convert the qualitative variable quantitatively. What we will do in interval scale variable? When we use interval scale, automatically the quantification of qualitative variable is made. So in order to quantify the qualitative variable, we use interval scale. So this is a numerical expression of the qualitative variable with as many as statements upon which the response may be obtained on a 7-point scale basis. And this response in the pilot study will be used for the fixation of sample size, optimal sample size, with that formula I have already explained. I had explained one formula. This is very suitable, very valid formula for the fixation of optimal sample size, and that formula can be applied here, where because we collect data for the measurement of as many variables with the different statements on a 7-point scale basis, upon which we receive responses from the respondents in the sample study. That responses can be used for the application of that formula, that particular formula, for the fixation of optimum sample size. And here, how many statements? Question number 9, 19.1 to 19.127 statements. 19.1 to 19.127 statements were used for the measurement of n number of variables relating to that particular topic, work-life balance of women gynecologists. The response from the n number of respondents in the sample study, so in the preliminary study or pilot study, will be used for the fixation of sample size. So for the fixation of optimum sample size for our study, we use the information furnished by the respondents in the pilot study. In the pilot study, I collect information from 100 respondents. So in the pilot study, 100 respondents have furnished information. And we use that particular information for the fixation of optimal sample size with that formula I had already explained. Here, I use MS Excel. I use MS Excel for the fixation of sample size with that formula. See, how many respondents? 100 respondents in our preliminary study or pilot study. How many statements upon which they responded? 127 statements upon which they responded. 127. 127. Once again, 100 respondents furnished information for the pilot study. against 127 statements for the measurement of a variable on a 7-point scale basis. Therefore, the sample respondents in the pilot study 100, they responded against 127 statements, and based on such information, we will apply that particular formula I had already explained. See, what is that formula? The formula is very simple. 1.96 standard deviation divided by d square. And by applying this particular formula, we can fix the optimal sample size against the data furnished by the respondents in the pilot study. What is the assumption here? What is the logic here? If we use certain information from the pilot study, and that information is almost equal to the information furnished by the respondent in the original study, because we collect the information from the same population upon which our study is continuing. So how to apply this formula in the MS Excel format? See, what are the values we have to calculate here? Firstly, 1.96, it is already here, standard deviation. Then the standard error of the estimate of the population parameter. For that purpose, we have to calculate firstly the mean, standard deviation, then apply this formula in Excel format. See how to apply this formula in the Excel sheet for the fixation of optimum sample size. Firstly, we have to calculate mean. Mean here means average. Mean here means average is equal to average. Then select this column. Select this column. Select this column. Select this column. 100 responses were entered in the formula, bracket close, and just press enter. So the mean value of the responses of the respondents against the first statement 3.52. So in the first, against the first statement, we calculate the mean of the responses. The responses of the 100 respondents upon which we calculate the mean value 3.52. So 3.52 is the mean value of the responses of the respondents against the first statement 19.1. See the questionnaire? The questionnaire 19.1. The questionnaire 19.1. The first statement. What is the first statement? I am afraid of getting certain diseases due to the bad environment. Against that statement, we get responses from the respondent, 100 respondent on a 7-point scale basis. 7 for strongly agree, 1 for strongly disagree. By using that information, we calculate the response of the mean of the response of the 100 respondents, 3.52. Then we drag the mean for the all the, then we 3.52. Is once again is equal to average. We select the first row and all the observation in the first column. Bracket close, enter. Therefore, the value for the first column 3.52. The mean value 3.52. That means the mean value of the responses of all the 100 respondents against the first statement. And we will calculate the mean value of all the columns. Mean value of all the columns. Now we will get the mean value of all the statements used for our study. Mean value of all the statements used for our study. Mean value of all the statements used for our study. Then calculate standard deviation, SD, is equal to standard deviation. Standard deviation. Select the first column. Select the first column. Select the first column. Bracket close. And the value of the standard deviation for all the 100 respondents against the first statement. Standard deviation of the response of the 100 respondents against the first deviation, first statement, 2.5245. Then drag it and observe the standard deviation of all the 127 statements. All the 127 statements. So we will calculate the standard deviation of all the 127 statements. Then apply that formula for the fixation of optimal sample size, n. Optimal sample size, n. By applying that formula, I had already explained. This is a formula. N, that means the targeted sample size, is equal to 1.96 standard deviation divided by d square. By applying this formula, definitely we will get the optimal sample size for our study. See, by applying this formula in Excel format, definitely we have certain types of options is equal to bracket 1.96 value of Z at 5% level of significance into standard deviation. Standard deviation, bracket cross, square, cut, and 2 divided by slash bracket 0.05 into mean value bracket cross at 2. At 2 means square. So what is the formula here? The formula is sample size n bracket 1.96 standard deviation into standard deviation divided by d square. In Excel format, this formula can be applied like this, is equal to 1.96 into the mean bracket hat 2, that means square, divided by 0.05 into standard deviation square, square means hat 2. Press enter. Here the n is equal to 790.411. Then we take it and drag it for the calculation of n for the 127 statement already be included in the questionnaire. See, we calculate n for all the statements. Then you identify which is the maximum. See, 790.411, 445, 394, 289, 239, 143, 287, 269, 144. Like that. Then you identify which is the maximum. N. Here the maximum n is 790. Therefore, our sample size will be 790, and over and above you can fix any sample size. See, once again, firstly we calculate the mean, standard deviation, then apply this formula in the Excel format, with a different mode of application of that formula, then we will get the n. Then compare the value of n for all the statements and find out which is the maximum. Here the maximum n is 790. Therefore, the sample size minimum will be 790. Our optimum sample size will be 790. So this is the way in which we can determine the sample size, optimum sample size statistically. But you just remember, so many formulas are available. For the fixation of sample size, but this is the most reliable one. The optimal sample size will be calculated by this formula, 1.96. That means the value of Z at a 5% level of significance. Standard deviation of the observation in the pilot study divided by D. D means the standard error of the estimation of population parameter square. And this will give the optimal sample size for the study. And this formula can be applied in the Excel format, where we enter the data from the pilot study and calculate mean, calculate standard deviation, and then apply the formula and find out the n. And out of the so many n are available against all the statements used for our questionnaire, we select the maximum. This maximum n will be the optimal sample size for our study. So from this point onwards, we will apply statistics for our study. Then, again, so after fixing the sample size, then we modify the questionnaire if it is necessary, and this questionnaire inner schedule is executed for data collection. And here the 790 is the optimal sample size. And we circulate this modified questionnaire to 790 sample population, sample respondents in the population, and collects data. So data has been collected from 790 sample that are selected from the population. So after collecting the data, we do the analysis. We do the analysis only for validating our hypothesis. The hypothesis we framed with the assumed relationship between dependent variable and independent variable. See, I will show one application. You just observe. In the questionnaire, work-life imbalance, one of the dependent variable, work-life imbalance. Work-life imbalance. This work-life imbalance is a dependent variable which is affected by n number of independent variables. Job burnout, job stress, then physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion. So many variables affecting the work-life imbalance. I want to establish a relationship between work-life imbalance and job burnout. And how job burnout affects work-life imbalance. Or how work-life imbalance is affected by job burnout. What is the dependent variable here? The dependent variable is work-life imbalance. Job burnout is the independent variable, the reason. Cause and effective relation, cause and effective relation. What is the effect here? Work-life imbalance. What is the cause? Job burnout. So what is the hypothesis here? The hypothesis is work-life balance is independent of job burnout. Or there is no significant dependence between work-life imbalance and job burnout. What is the null hypothesis here? There is no dependence or association or relationship between work-life imbalance and job burnout. What is the dependent variable? The dependent variable is work-life imbalance. What is the independent variable? The reason, job burnout. What is the effect? Effect is work-life imbalance. What is the cause? Job burnout. So, I want to prove this hypothesis. What is the statistical method usually applied here? Here, the variables are in nominal scale. Sorry, the variables are in interval scale. Work-life imbalance, 4 statements were used for the measurement. Job burnout, again 4 statements were used for its measurement on a 7-point scale basis. So interval scale is used for the measurement of these 2 variables. So the relation is interval to interval, interval to interval. What we will prove? We will prove the dependence, the cause and effect relation. Therefore, the appropriate statistical method in this case is regression. Appropriate statistical method in this case is regression. How far the job burnout affects work-life imbalance, or how far the job work-life imbalance is affected by job burnout. So for that purpose, the appropriate statistical method here is regression. See how to apply regression. In the SPSS, we enter all the data, then create variables, and the SPSS we have analyze menu, regression, linear regression. What is our dependent variable? Our dependent variable is very simple, work-life imbalance, work-life imbalance, our dependent variable, which is affected by job burnout. So here job burnout, independent variable, and click simply OK. See, I just demonstrate only one statistical method, that is regression and its application. What are the conditions under which regression is applied? Both the variables are in nominal scale or quantitative variable. Here, job burnout is the independent variable. Work-life imbalance is the dependent variable. And what is the relation here? What is the hypothesis here? There is no significant dependence between work-life imbalance and job burnout. What we will measure? How far the job burnout affects work-life imbalance, or how far the work-life imbalance is affected by job burnout. And that interval to interval relation can be tested with the regression, simple regression. So at the time of the application of regression, actually we observe the R square, 0.83 R square, which means 83% of the explanation of work-life imbalance is made by job burnout. Or the variation of work-life imbalance, 83% is due to the variation of job burnout. That is the significance of R square. So once again, work-life imbalance, 83% variation is due to the impact of job burnout. Or job burnout alone can have an influence of 83% on work-life imbalance. That is what the R square says. The ANOVA is significant. The variation is significant. Then you interpret the coefficient. Job burnout 8.858, which means if job burnout is increased by 1 unit, automatically work-life imbalance is increased by 0.858. There is a positive relationship between linear relationship between job burnout and work-life imbalance. If the job burnout is increased by 1 unit, automatically the work-life balance is increased by 0.858. So there is a positive relationship between work-life imbalance and job burnout. Therefore, our null hypothesis has to be rejected. What is the null hypothesis? There is no significant relationship between work-life imbalance and job burnout. That null hypothesis has to be rejected. Rejected in the sense that there is a beta coefficient and the t-value is found significant. The probability value is significant, 0.00, less than 0.05. Therefore, job burnout has strong impact on work-life imbalance, or work-life imbalance is affected by job burnout. So, at the time of the application of statistics, definitely the researcher has to know something about the scaling. Nominal scale, interval scale, ordinal scale, ordinal ranking scale. When we use nominal scale or an ordinal ranking scale, there is an assumption. The ordinal ranking and nominal scale will not give a normal distribution. It will create only frequency distribution. But interval scale, when we use interval scale, automatically that scale will give a normal distribution. Therefore, against the ordinal ranking and nominal scale, we cannot apply parametric test. That is why we will go for non-parametric test. Non-parametric test against nominal scale and ordinal ranking scale variable. But when we use interval scale, automatically the quantitative variable becomes quantitative variable. Then we can apply parametric test. Here, the work-life imbalance and the job burnout, we measured these two qualitative variables quantitatively by using interval scale variable, 7-point scale interval scale variable. So interval scale is used for the measurement of these two variable, qualitative variable. And after using the interval scale, automatically these two variables is measured quantitatively or numerically. That is why we can apply different parametric test. And in this context, in order to prove or validate that hypothesis, there is no significant dependence or relationship between or impact between job burnout and the work-life imbalance. We apply the regression, simple regression. And at the time of the simple application of simple regression, we observe the value of R square. Then whether the ANOVA is significant or not, we observe. And finally, we interpret the result with the beta coefficient, positive beta coefficient. So this is the application of regression, and the researcher must be very careful at what stage the statistical techniques are to be applied. The statistical techniques and its applications are started from the point at which we select the sample from the population, then collect necessary data from the selected sample respondents from the population, and then the data has to be analyzed, and at the time of the application of statistical method against the data, you just remember one thing. It is better to apply simple statistical method. The application of graph, presentation of graph, and the calculation of simple average or even descriptive statistics is much easier than the application of some of the high-end statistics like multivariate statistical technique or bivariate statistical technique. A simple graph, calculation of simple percentage, will present the story of your thesis better than the application of some of the high-end statistical techniques for multivariate and bivariate analysis. At the same time, when you create certain type of relationship, network of relationship, chain of relationship, that can be proved with some of the statistical technique for multivariate analysis. Say, for example, canonical correlation, structural equation modeling or path analysis, or even multiple discriminant analysis, multi-dimensional scaling. So at the time of application of all these statistical method, definitely the researcher should have the concrete relationship, network of relationship, chain of relationship. Then only you can apply this high-end statistical technique against the data, but it need a sound and concrete theory. Based on that theory, you establish valid relationship, and based on your relationship, you can prove it with the application of some of the best statistical methods available in statistics. So, thank you. And if you have any query or questions, please ask. I will answer it. Please. Please ask me. Vinod? Rajesh sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes, one question, sir, how to conduct field survey? Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So I have already explained the future of social science research. What are the features of social science research? In social science research, basically the design is survey design. If we collect secondary data, that collection is basically a survey. If one has to conduct survey on a specific population groups. See, women empowerment through Kudumbashree. Women empowerment through Kudumbashree. What is the target population? All the members of the Kudumbashree units in Kerala is the target population. How to collect the data? You collect the data with a questionnaire or interview schedule. You approach each and every members of the Kudumbashree, selected Kudumbashree, and collect information. This is a particular type of inquiry. This is a survey conducted by you. You select record number of respondents from the sample, from the population. So this is a sample survey. If we collect information from all the Kudumbasuri members, this is a census inquiry, census survey. So in social science, data can be collected from the respondents with a questionnaire or interview schedule. This is an inquiry. That inquiry is called a survey. So survey-based research design must be used for the study in social science. Yes. Any other question?
Thank you, Dr. P.N. Harikumar, sir, for your valuable presentation. That was educative, informative, and enlightening session, sir. Thank you very much. We will go ahead and take some time for discussion now. Please be sure to type your questions in the chat box or unmute your audio and ask your question to sir. Okay.
Yes, ask your question. Otherwise, you type the question and put in the message box.
Sir, there is a question, sir. How can we
tell me.
fix sample size when population is unknown, like that of survey in tourist by Divya Joseph?
This is a serious question because in the unknown population, the word itself, we can't predict the parameter values. The population is unknown. Against unknown population, we can't measure the population parameter. So that is why we collect information from the respondents in the pilot study, and the information from the pilot study will be used for the fixation of optimal sample size. And I had explained that formula. That formula can be applied against the information furnished by the respondents in the pilot study for the fixation of optimal sample size. And whether the population is finite or infinite, it is immaterial. So that is a reliable and sound formula. But so many formulas are available for fixation of sample size in the finite population. Again, fixation of sample size formula for unknown population, infinite population. So that is why that formula is very, very important for fixation of optimal sample size against the data furnished by the respondents in the pilot study. That is why pilot study is very, very important aspect in research. Any other question?
Okay, sir, thank you. Can we say that percentage analysis is a tool of data analysis by Aishwarya Selvaraj?
Percentage is basically a mathematical tool, but percentage conveys more message than any other statistical method. 90% of the respondents were satisfied. 90% of the employees are satisfied. 90% of the customers are delighted. It can tell the story better than any other statistical method. But you can't test a hypothesis with a percentage. Hypothesis can be tested with appropriate statistical methods. Statistical tests are available for proving or disproving the hypothesis, whether it is true or not. So percentage convey more information better than any other statistical methods. Percentage analysis is good, but cannot be tested with some hypothesis.
Okay, sir, thank you. Sir, how many samples have to be taken for pilot study by Amal Sharin?
That depends on the discretion of the researcher. If I select 100, this 100 is enough for getting your variation. If we need more variation, the sample must be much higher. If we get more variation for your pilot study, definitely you can take 150. But maybe 50 to 100 is the best. 50 to 100.
Okay, sir. Thank you. There is a question in live chat.
Respondents to be included in a questionnaire? Another question, how many respondents must be included in the questionnaire? What do you mean?
Yes, sir.
One message in the chat box. How many respondents? Once again, that question. Please ask. Sir, it is necessary to include more sample for pilot study in case of unknown population. Maybe, but the pilot study must be restricted with the 100 sample maximum. That is best. Whether
Okay,
it is
sir.
non-population or unknown population.
Okay, sir. There is a question in live chat. Do you think this kind of research methodology is applicable to research areas like animation, design, etc., which are mainly audiovisual media where little scope for theoretical research?
Can you say? Can you ask that question once again?
Okay, sir. Do you think this kind of research methodology is applicable to research areas like animation, design, etc., which are mainly
animation and design? Animation and design.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Animation and design. Do you believe that there is an inquiry or a survey conducted between animation people or design people?
Sir, it is a question raised in a live chat, YouTube live chat by James.
Yes. Okay. But if you conduct a survey among the people who are in animation job, definitely this type of design can be applied. Those who are in the field of animation, you will get some information by conducting a survey. So survey design can be applied there. So you collect information with a questionnaire or an interview schedule. Therefore, survey design can be applied. But if it is technical or a experimental design, no need for conducting a survey. Survey design cannot be applied there. If you collect data with a questionnaire or interview schedule, definitely it may be a survey design. Where the questionnaire or interview schedule can be used for data collection? Only if you conduct the survey. So the survey design can be applied with the questionnaire or interview schedule. Then.
Okay, sir. Another question in chat box. Sir, to understand contribution of something, for example, self-help groups on rural development, should we take respondents who are benefited and also who are not part of it? If we take both, how should the questionnaire be developed? By Anupi Matthew.
One set of respondents, the beneficiaries. Am I correct? Another set of respondents, the respondents who have not availed such benefits.
Yes, sir.
Yes. With the same questionnaire, can we collect data? This is your question. Sir, can we collect data with the same questionnaire?
Yes, sir. That was my question.
Yes, yes. So you have two populations. You have two populations.
Yes, sir.
The first population is the beneficiaries. The
Yes,
second
sir.
population, those who have not availed such benefits,
Yeah.
such schemes.
Yes, sir.
with the same questionnaire or interview schedule, you can't collect information from these two populations which are different,
Okay.
not identical population. You can collect information with a separate questionnaire and
Okay,
do the
sir.
analysis. No comparison can be made.
So in that case, should the variables be the same, sir, for both the questionnaires?
No.
Need not be.
Because one group is totally unaware about that scheme.
Yeah.
They have not availed
Yeah.
such schemes.
Yeah.
Another category who availed such schemes and get some empowerment.
Yeah. Benefit out of
They
it.
have their own experience.
Yeah.
You can collect information against certain variables from that target group.
Okay.
But the second group, they are totally unaware about such schemes. They are totally unaware about certain variables affecting such schemes. So the study can be conducted in two different ways. Two separate questionnaires must be necessary.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, another question raised by Shamshana VC. When non-probability sampling is using, if this is the case, we can apply a parametric test or not?
Theoretically speaking, statistical methods can be applied against the data collected from the respondents selected at random. Statistical theory says like that. You can apply different statistical method against data that can be collected from the selected respondent at random. But when you use survey design, you collect information by conducting a survey, sample survey. So in that case, it is advisable to apply statistical method. Theoretically, we can't do that, but practically we can do it. Then, any other question, Robin?
Yes. If anybody have questions, please unmute your audio and ask question to our resource person. Okay, sir. Thank you.